Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Nutmeg Sports, Hump Day edition here on the HAN Network with Donald Eng. I'm Rob Adams. Big show today simply because we've got a lot to get to in terms of the playoffs. Dave Stewart, of course, our FCAC guru, sports editor of the New Canaan Advertiser, is going to join us here in a moment. But, Dom, we've got a lot of stuff going on. We'll also get to girls lacrosse highlights from yesterday. What day is it? We'll talk about baseball coming up later today. We've got basically a win and they're in type of game today up in Danbury. Again, a lot of pieces to deal with today.
It's remarkable how we got this late into the season and there's still so much undecided. It's been such a topsy-turvy season. Really, anybody, it's been the epitome of the any given Sunday type of season in about 3 sports.
And the guy who knows best is Dave Stewart. We'll bring him on now. Dave, how are you?
I'm doing all right. Little busy this week, but doing all right.
Is this season particularly weird or different? Do you find a different feel to this one versus other seasons?
It's always interesting at the end of the year, especially baseball tends to be one of the most contentious seasons in terms of who's going to make the playoffs. So I would say this is actually fairly typical in terms of the kind of finish we're having. I think in some of the other sports, it's been a little bit interesting. We had a very close finish for the 8th-9th spot in the girls lacrosse PowerPoint. So that's unusual. Usually the PowerPoints are pretty clear, but this year there was like a 1-point difference between Ludlow and Staples, which is extremely close. So the math had to be double checked a lot. So but it's been very interesting, and I think some of the tournaments are going to be very, very, other than St. Joe's and softball, they're pretty dominant. I don't see anybody who's like a shoo-in for a championship, and even St. Joe's could be knocked off.
You mentioned St. Joe's, Dave, and I was just going to ask, we had St. Joe's played West Hill over the weekend. The game was not really as close as I had kind of expected it to be. Do you have a handle on how good the Vikings are?
I think they're very good. They lost a couple of games, I believe, earlier in the year. So, and so that kind of knocked them back in the pack a little bit. But, as far they're perfectly capable of beating anybody in the league right now. They play a tough, they do set up some tough out-of-conference games. They're capable. I just feel like St. Joe's right now with Nicole Williams and the way they're playing, they're so deep, they're so talented. And I just think they're pretty driven right now to finish it out. They're the chalk, and I think they're probably out of between the lacrosse, baseball, and softball standings. I would say they're probably the heaviest favorite to win it all, and that's even considering how dominant Darien's 2 lacrosse teams have been. I just think that St. Joe's is the team that's going to take it all, the number 1 seed, most likely to win it all.
Let's switch over to baseball, Dave. We know Darien, Greenwich, Trumbull, Norwalk, Ward all locked in with playoff seeds. They don't all have home games yet. Norwalk, I just saw Tommy Benincasa, their third baseman, tweet a win tonight against Wilton, and they're set. They'll have a home game. But, we've got the Staples Danbury game coming up at 4 o'clock here on the HAN Network. But Ludlow's also there in that mix as well. We keep saying Staples Danbury is a win and they're in situation. But how does Ludlow play into all of that?
Well, everybody is pretty much right now. Everybody, because of different tiebreakers, has an opportunity to get in or be knocked out in those last 5. I believe out of all of them, Ridgefield, with the way the tiebreakers work, Ridgefield and St. Joe's have the easiest roads, even if they lose, only because of the teams they've beaten and the way the tiebreakers work. But it's you never know. So many teams have beaten other teams, and it really depends on not only if you end up in a tie, but who you end up in a tie with. That could change the whole picture for everybody. But everybody should head into the last day of the season. One of those is, you know what, we got to go out and win and see how the chips fall. Obviously, it's a little bit easier for Ridgefield, St. Joe's, and Staples. They win, it's a clinch just based on record, and you don't even have to worry about tiebreakers at that point. But this Danbury Staples is a huge game, and any of those 5 teams could end up in there. And the way the season's gone, any of those 5 teams could end up going all the way to the championship. I mean, how would you like to be the Darien Blue Wave? Get the top seed, earn the top seed, and all of a sudden here you see the Staples Wreckers coming over for the quarterfinal games. I mean, that's some reward right there. That's a team that could come up and win it all from the 8 seed.
No, I was just going to say I'd rather be that situation than be in a situation of Greenwich there, where you interrupt your regularly scheduled high school baseball tournament to play a regular season out of conference game.
I know it's very interesting. Some of that rain 2 weeks ago, where a lot of games got pushed aside and had to be delayed. Everybody wants to play those games because they're important for state seeding. So you got to do it right in the middle of everything, and it'd be interesting to see how they approach that. Do they throw one of their better pitchers? Do they, do they ease off a little bit, and in that case, maybe put themselves at a disadvantage when they're playing Xavier on Saturday? But we'll see. We'll see.
Well,
it's going to be an interesting situation to be sure.
Well, that Xavier game also, it's the tiebreaker in the SCC FCAC Challenge, and also, I mean, you would think maybe they would kind of trot out some JVs or maybe their third pitcher, but but you need these games for your seeding in the state tournament also. So it's they're in a tough spot.
It comes into play, but it does make things very interesting. It's stuff they don't plan on when the season starts, So, but it's a result. It's spring. We had that one period of where we had rain all the time, and that really knocked things for a loop because you got a few teams playing this week, not necessarily non-conference games. A couple on Wednesday. I think at least one on Wednesday, couple on Thursday, and then the one on Saturday. So it's just interesting the way that all fell.
And then you've got boys lacrosse, Dave, which to me is total chaos right now because with New Canaan losing to Ridgefield, now you've got a bunch of teams at 13-3, and this isn't just simple as let's take the records and all. There's a voting system involved in all of this as well in terms of seedings. What is that all about? Explain that for those who don't know it.
Well, it's basically the way because everybody plays an uneven schedule, meaning that they don't play everybody in the league, so you can't really compare records. What'll happen is they use PowerPoint similar to the CIAC's football ranking system, where you get 100 points for a win, and you get 10 bonus points for each win that opponent has. So, let's say Darien beat New Canaan a couple of weeks ago, game we did, and New Canaan ends up with 9 wins. So for that one, Darien gets 190 points, 100 for the win, 90 bonus points. And then your averages, the averages of all the different teams, the top 8 averages are what qualifies you for the FCAC tournament. Usually you can pretty much look at the records and kind of figure out who's going to be in and who's going to be out too, but that doesn't always hold true. But the interesting twist to it is when you get to the once you get the qualifiers in mind, the 8 teams, because they all played an uneven schedule, and some may have played really strong schedules, and some have played weaker schedules, they do a vote, and the 8 playoff coaches vote ranking the other 7 teams. They don't rank their own team. They rank them 1 through 7. You tally it up, and the team that got the lowest total, in other words, if they got the most number 1 votes or most number 2 votes, they finished it. They get the 1 seed, you get the 2 seed, second least, and then you go all the way down through 8. And so it's really difficult to figure out sometimes how the vote's going to go. And the game that really has thrown a monkey wrench into it right now is the Ridgefield's win over New Canaan last night. Ridgefield won at Dunning Field 7-3. And you've got a situation now where Darien's pretty much a clear number 1. And then you have Ridgefield, New Canaan, and Staples. All are 9-2 in the league. I believe Ridgefield and New Canaan are both 13-3 overall, and Staples is 14-2. So the records are almost, identical all the way through. And you got them all tied at 9-2, and their power points are going to be similar. And on top of it, Staples beat Ridgefield, New Canaan beat Staples, Ridgefield beat New Canaan, so you got that, circular tiebreakers going. So how everybody's going to vote is really up in the air for those 2 through 4 seeds. I believe probably you're looking at in the 5 and 6, Greenwich and Wilton. Greenwich has played everybody tough, so that 4 or 5 game, whoever they get, whether it's Staples, whether it's Ridgefield, whether it's New Canaan, that 4 or 5 is going to be really, really a great game. And then even Wilton at the 6 seed, they kind of, they're the old standby, but they kind of flown under the radar this year. But they're a strong team, and they're still a Wilton program. So whatever 3 seed gets them is going to be, that's going to be another tough game.
Dave, hold that thought. We'll come back with more with you because we've got a lot of stuff to sort out. We'll get to girls lacrosse, of course. Now, they resolved their issues last night, but we'll talk more about that. We've got some other stuff to get to with Dave as we continue here on Nutmeg Sports for a busy Wednesday on the HAN Network.
I think what makes ONS special is that it has everything that makes academic medicine great. We have the fellowship-trained specialists, but we still bring the style and type of medicine that's indicative of a community practice.
We are all trained in our area of interest and expertise, so our patients see a doctor who specializes in their particular injury.
I did have 2 consults with major New York City hospitals, but I just felt that the care was best here. I was treated like a rock star. The surgery exceeded any expectations that I had.
It's time to come back to hometown banking, where people are taken into account, not just balances, where community comes first, a place where there's more than one kind of interest, where automation will never replace consideration, where they not only know your name, they know your dog's name too. It's time to expect more. It's time to bank well. Bank smart. Bank local. Bank well.
A Better View Window Cleaning Plus has been cleaning glass all over Connecticut for over 20 years. They also specialize in cleaning chandeliers, mirrors, skylights, tiles, and will power wash anything that needs cleaning. They hold an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and are fully insured and bonded. When you deal with a Better View, you're dealing with the best, not the rest. Call today for a free estimate, 203-284-8836, or visit them online, abetterviewcleaning.com.
You are watching the HAN Network, and you're not alone. Nearly 500,000 viewers enjoyed our broadcasts in the first 5 months. Advertise on the network that reaches Fairfield County, Connecticut's most engaged audience. Contact Jessica Murrin, Advertising Director, at 203-273-7312 or email jessica@han.network.
Back with you on Nutmeg Sports. Jenny Schrenker directing today, doing an outstanding job over there. So a nod to the soon-to-be Darien High School grad, along with Donald Eng. I'm Rob Adams. Welcome back to the show. Grant Weiler in the building as well, doing whatever he does. So back with you on the program. Let's get back to talking to Dave Stewart. And Dave, boys lacrosse will be announced, I assume, later tonight.
They're doing that tonight. There's still games, and there's actually still games that count towards the PowerPoints tonight. So once they do that, we'll have the vote. We hopefully have the seating up by like 9:30 tonight.
Okay.
That'll be on SCF.net.
Exactly. So girls lacrosse was resolved last night. Greenwich Ridgefield, I know that played into things with a game that we saw. We'll get to the highlights before we say goodbye today, but I know that was a big game in terms of seeding, but still, by the time they got the voting done, kind of how did that all shake out? Was that a little bit easier to figure out?
Well, usually they don't. The voting doesn't follow the PowerPoints exactly, but in this case, actually, it did. So the order of finish the top 8 was actually the order of the PowerPoint finish too. So the votes were pretty true to form this time, and that Ridgefield win over Greenwich was a really big one for them. That gave them an undefeated official FCX season. They're In other words, the games that were on the master schedule to begin with, the official league games. Ridgefield had 10. They won 9 and tied 1. So they finished 9-0-1 and got the 3 seed. They likely got the 3 seed behind New Canaan, which was 9-1 in the league, simply because New Canaan and Ridgefield played an out-of-conference game, and New Canaan beat them 15-11. So, the seedings are pretty straightforward there. And you got Darien as the chalk, which they seem to be the chalk in almost every sport this year. That's going to be an interesting games too. Greenwich Wilton at 4-5 is 2 perennial contenders there, so that'll be interesting. And you got to hand it to Ridgefield, because Ridgefield's kind of in the last 2 years has kind of cracked into that top 4, and they've looked really strong. They looked really great this year. When they played New Canaan, they fell way behind, hung in there, came back and made a game of it. So. And then beating Greenwich on the last day of the season in overtime, I believe, to go into the playoffs is just a great way to kick it off.
Now, Dave, I'm looking at the speaking of Darien and being the chalk pick. Looking at the girls' tennis rankings, no surprise, top seed Darien with a record of 16-0. What about Staples though? 16-1, their 1 loss, 4-3 Darien. Can anyone challenge the Wave as far on the courts this year?
Oh, I think so. When I believe their game, like you said, I think they were 4-3 when they played Darien. So that's just a matter of switching, one match right there. And I don't have the individual scores for that, but if there's a 3-setter in there that they lost or a close one, you see flip flops happen all the time in the tournaments. A player figures another player out, or just needed to see them once and adjust their playing style for it. So, I could see Staples doing that. Once you get beyond that, New Canaan's actually has had a very good season this year. And the last couple of years, New Canaan's gone through like 3 coaches the last couple of years, and now Susan Lovejoy is coaching this year, and she's kind of stabilized things, and they had a great season. And they finished with a big win over Greenwich. So. They're solid too. When they played Darien earlier this year, though, they did not do that well, and that was one of their 2 losses. Staples they lost to last week 5-2. When you start to get into scores like that, now you've got to switch a couple of matches and hope that you're the ones that won the first time hold. Then it gets to be a little bit more difficult when you start to get into that 5-2, 6-1 scores and stuff like that. And unless you had an injury, then you never know. Then you never know if somebody's coming back, and the matchups will be better for you this time around. But Darien is definitely the team to beat here. Obviously, as the number 1 seed and undefeated. But I could definitely see Staples flip flopping that if Staples and Darien is a finals matchup.
How about boys tennis? Where do you see that going?
Well, I got to get these seeds that are set there right now. You still got Greenwich. Greenwich and Staples are the teams at the top. New Canaan has had a great year too, and they lost. They did lose to Staples last week, 7-0. Although New Canaan does have a couple of injuries right now, so their lineup has really been out of whack. And they lost to Greenwich 6-1 on Monday. So they're struggling a little bit right now. I think they'll get by their first round matchup, and then hopefully they'll be able to get everybody back, and then that'll make it interesting for them. But Staples always looks great in there, and they're going to end up as I believe the number 2 seed right now. But they're another one. They're just like Staples is in baseball. Once they get in, they could do anything, and so I wouldn't be surprised to see them being a finalist and even taking it all again.
Should be a very interesting end of the season. But I want to go back to that boys lacrosse game. What is going on with New Canaan? I mean, I know Ridgefield's a good team, obviously, but are the Rams in a little bit of a funk right now? What's going on with the Rams?
Well, last on they played St. Anthony's and lost 8-3 on Saturday, and they played Ridgefield last time, lost 7-3, and. Chip Buzzio was talking about bad shooting choices right now. Their offense is just not clicking at the moment. You got he said it was unacceptable given the talent they have, and they do have the talent to score a ton of goals, and to get 6 in the last 2 games and not score a goal against Ridgefield for the final 33 minutes is just incredible with the guys they have. So they're having trouble finding the net right now, and they need to figure that out, because if they do end up as a 3 seed or a 4 seed, they're going to face a tough team in that first round of the FCX, and it's not going to be a pushover. And if they don't figure out a way to score, they could be in trouble. Whereas early in the year they looked like a shoo-in for the FCX final. You just wonder if they went 9-0 over a really tough beginning of the schedule, and then they had a little bit of a lull where they played Trinity, McMahon, and the 2 Fairfield schools, and they kind of had 4 blowouts in a row, and then come back with St. Anthony's, and all of a sudden they really just haven't looked the same. So, they've got to find a way to bounce back at this point. They play in Class M for the states, so you still got to figure they're going to be the favorite to win that, given that they're defending champions and the schedule they play. But, for these kids, for all the kids in the FCX tournament is really where it's at, because especially in New Canaan's case, you're not going to see any of these teams again after this. If you're a senior on a New Canaan team, Darien, you've been playing Darien for years. If you don't get to meet up with them in the FCX, you're done, and you don't get a chance to, give one more test against them. So this tournament's going to be important, and New Canaan does need to figure it out.
And I'm absolutely fascinated, staying in boys lacrosse, by what Greenwich was able to do to Darien last weekend. They really hung in there with the Blue Wave. It was an interesting game.
Yeah, I'll be honest, that came out of nowhere for me. I didn't see that coming at all from Greenwich. I know Greenwich has a solid team, but the way Darien has played, and the way Darien has played this year, and the way Darien has handled teams which I considered better than Greenwich this year, I didn't expect that at all from Greenwich. And for them to not only take them to overtime, but have the lead late, where you thought they were going to be the team to knock Darien off, that's a big feather in their cap, and that could play into the seedings too. When people vote, that might move them up, and that's why the vote this year is going to be so interesting, because so many teams have looked so good at different times during the year. And to Greenwich's credit, they hung with New Canaan. I believe that game was 8-6, if I'm not mistaken. They lost the early game to Ridgefield, 10-7. I think we did both those games,
right? And
they came back at the end to kind of make that kind of close. And they lost to Staples in overtime. None of those games all those games are against tough teams, and all those games are fairly close, with the exception of maybe the Ridgefield one. So it'll be interesting to see. Greenwich can probably, jump up and beat anybody, and hey, if you lose them to them during the regular season and beat them in the playoffs, you get the better end of the deal. So we'll see how it goes for the Cardinals.
And that's what I was wondering about, is, could the Cardinals just be rounding into form? I mean, they've won 7 of their last 8 games against state competition. I mean, they lost to Chaminade, no shame in that, and then the overtime loss to Darien. Other than that, they're coming in on a 7-game winning streak. So despite the fact that their record is not overly impressive, 9-6 so far, according to the CIAC, but 7-1 against state competition, with their only loss coming to the number 1 team in the state in overtime. It may just be that that this Greenwich team has just made tremendous strides during the course of the season.
Well, I think they've had the talent all along, obviously. They are finishing strong, and coming off that Darien game, that's got to be a boost for their confidence and their morale going into the playoffs. I'm not sure how the vote will go. It depends. It's hard to figure out how coaches are going to think. Are they going to say, "Well, I'm going to vote Greenwich in a certain spot based on how they played when I saw them, whether it was early in the season, middle of the season, or the end. I'm going to vote Greenwich in another spot because they finished strong, or I'm just going to look at the whole picture and look at the record." So it all depends on how the coaches, how the coaches look at it. I found I've always found the vote to be pretty understandable. If you get what I mean, like at the end of the day, you can understand the reasoning for people voting every way. But if you look at that 2 through 4 with New Canaan, Staples, Ridgefield, and then throw in Greenwich into that mix too, that's all going to be wild because if Ridgefield goes by what they saw, they beat Greenwich fairly handily, and they handled New Canaan last night, but they lost to Staples. So how are they going to look at that whole thing? And that's the type of thing you got to wonder about.
Bring on the playoffs, Dave. I'm ready.
I'm ready to go too. We do have just to give an update to have some times on the girls lacrosse quarterfinals for Friday. They tentatively schedule all these games for 4:00,
right?
But the teams can move them to different times based on whatever. But Ludlow and Darien are going to play on Friday. That's the 8-1 game. They're going to play at 4:00. Wilton and Greenwich in the 5-4 game. That's Wilton at Greenwich is at 4:30. And number 6 Ward at number 3 Ridgefield is going to go at 5 p.m. Now, the one that we don't have an official schedule for yet is number 7 Norwalk at number 2 New Canaan. Right now, that's still scheduled for Friday, but New Canaan has its senior prom that night. So the last I heard was they're actually talking about possibly moving it to Thursday. So that game could be tomorrow. If they play tomorrow, it'll likely be 4:30. And if they play on Friday, it would likely be 2:00 just to move it up a bit. But they just that I haven't heard a confirmation on any times yet for that. So that's still a TBA.
All right.
That's the schedule.
Dave, as always, great to talk to you. We'll see you back in studio pretty soon. But for now, good stuff, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks a lot.
We'll be talking. Thanks, Rob.
All right.
Thanks.
Dave Stewart with us here on Nutmeg Sports. We need to take a break. We'll come back. We've got some girls lacrosse highlights, and we'll put a ribbon on this show right after this on the HAN Network.
Had a sports injury or slip and fall that needs immediate care? Coastal Ortho Express Urgent Care gives you direct access to an orthopedic specialist fast without an appointment. Biking, golf, tennis, soccer, whatever the sports injury is, sprain or fracture, Coastal Ortho Express can help. Coastal Ortho Express Urgent Care open Monday through Saturday in the iPark building at 761 Main Avenue in Norwalk, or go to coastalorthoexpress.com. That's coastalorthoexpress.com. Like them on Facebook.
Can't wait for it to get warmer so you can start fishing again? Get over to the Dock Shop, where they have the latest in fishing tackle, marine electronics, boating supplies, and more. But remember, the Dock Shop isn't your average tackle shop. You'll also find the finest selection of nautical apparel, jewelry, home decor, and gifts in New England. Boater, beach bum, fisherman, or simply love the New England coast, this is a unique place to shop. The Dock Shop, 51 Tokenique Road, Darien, 609 Riverside Avenue, Westport, DocShop.com.
Do you need help reaching or maintaining your fitness goals? For over 20 years, Mike Pernice has tailored his time and expertise to clients on both coasts whose schedules demand flexibility and accountability. Mike is a certified lifestyle manager and has been called upon to help his clients eliminate negative behaviors such as coping with stress, improving their time management, setting realistic life goals, and cutting down compulsive behavior. If you're ready to start working toward a more energetic, productive, and healthier you, call Mike Pernice.
For over 25 years, Mike Cizik Painting and Wallpapering has been the name to know for residential and commercial properties in Fairfield County. He uses only the top brands, including Benjamin Moore, for impeccable preparation and lasting quality. Call Mike now and receive $500 off any job over $7,000. Mike is currently accepting reservations for spring, so call him today at 203-770-8869 or 203-972-3310. For your custom painting, finishing, and staining needs, it's Mike Cizik.
I'm Kate Chaplinsky. Join us for Coffee Break, weekdays at 11 to get the latest Connecticut news, weather, high school sports, and more. News doesn't get any more local than on Coffee Break on the HAN Network.
Final seconds here on Nutmeg Sports. We're going to bring you highlights of yesterday's broadcast from Greenwich High School's Cardinal Stadium to wrap the show. Really good girls lacrosse game to kind of end the regular season for girls lacrosse, at least. I really enjoyed what I saw between Ridgefield and Greenwich yesterday afternoon.
Yeah, it was a good game. It was competitive, and it really gives you a bit of a handle. You know, you always try and look at how teams fared against certain other teams, and since Ridgefield and Darien, two of the top 3 teams, didn't play each other this season, you know, we get to at least we get Greenwich. We get to compare them against Greenwich, against New Canaan, and then as we said, on for the playoffs. We're ready.
One more game in our regular season. It is today. It is the Staples Wreckers taking on the Danbury Hatters in baseball. That will be at 4 o'clock at Danbury High School. Kevin Coleman, Justin Galanti with me on the call. And then we're into playoff mode. Baseball Friday, boys lacrosse Saturday. Doubleheader doubleheader baseball, I should say, Monday for the semifinals. Doubleheader boys lacrosse on Tuesday semifinals. Baseball championship Wednesday, and then the doubleheader boys and girls lacrosse championships 1 week from tomorrow. All of that in the FCAC. But now we're going to switch over. We'll bring you highlights from yesterday's game at Greenwich High School between Greenwich and Ridgefield. For Jenny, for Grant, for Eric, for Donald Eng, thanks to Dave Stewart. I'm Rob Adams. We'll see you in a couple of hours for baseball from Danbury. Enjoy the highlights here on Nutmeg Sports. From Cardinal Stadium in Greenwich, it's high school girls lacrosse. Caitlin Young across the way for the Greenwich Cardinals. An interesting conversation with Coach Berger as this is thrown down, and Greenwich gets the early goal. Tried it a couple of times. She said, let me just spell it for you. Off to the far side it goes.
Something I know all too well.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. Tigers with a good look. They're able to tie it right back up. That was way too easy. All the way out goes McMullen. She makes the turn. Little collision there. This is thrown down and a goal. Low scoring, but kind of interesting, kind of fun. 3-2 at the half. Making her move, Villamur. Couldn't get a good look on net. And of course, you're dealing with Maddie Burns in the goal. Down goes to Winter, and able to get it to 4-3. Hence, night game. 7 o'clock, that at Trumbull High School. Bouncer on net, and able to throw it home. Ann Hage makes it a 5-3 game. The junior looking to put the Tigers up 3, and she does. A bouncer gets past Schultz, 6-3. The senior day here at Cardinal Stadium for these Greenwich lacrosse players. Down low, up top, O'Gorman. It's a 1-goal game at 6-5. Waits on the whistle, there it is, makes the approach, throws it, and it bounces in. Deliberately working for overtime, maybe. Sterling walk up, almost stole it, but instead it's O'Gorman to tie it. Under 1 to go, we're knotted at 7. 6.5 to go. The move, thrown along, back behind with 3. Ball loose with 1, and we're going to overtime. McMullen and Claire Lochran connecting. Down she goes, thrown down, and she scores! The final score, Ridgefield 8, Greenwich 7.